12-279 or state statute. That was in fact what I asked in the meeting, so I want it reflected.
Right.
I had said that, you know, Mr. Wilson said he was unable to answer that, and John came back with this language, which I said, fine. That Mr. Wilson reviewed the process and requirements, et cetera. But my main change was in the first sentence. So what is it you don't like?
I don't think it's necessary to be there, number one. I don't think necessarily every question that's asked and answers received is part of a summary of the minutes of the meeting.
I asked this.
I think it adds clarification, Andy, to the discussion that we had, so I have no problem with it.
I don't have a problem.
Any other comments on the language? No. Hearing none. All those in favor of the changes as requested by Joanne Hennessy and the original minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question here at this point, or later on, to Mr. Wilson about exactly that paragraph that we just...
I'd say later on would be the time.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is public comments, agenda items only. Did anyone sign up to make public comments? Okay. Then we will go to the highlight of the day, or one of the highlights, our Town of Kiowa Island Comprehensive Plan Update Kickoff, starring Blake Reed and Abigail, whose last name I do not know, Gillen, from LS3P, introduced by John Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Today is an exciting day. We have our consultant team here with us to introduce to the community our kickoff of the Kiowa Island Comprehensive Plan Update. And so I will allow them to come and present to you guys. We've just before this meeting had a workshop where you were able to dive a little in deep with the consultant team. And so they'll just kind of provide an overview of the scope and sort of plan of how we're going to navigate this this update, with you being the conduit of how that happens. So with no further ado, Blake and Abigail, thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Blake Reed, urban designer and planner with LS3P. We are an architecture firm based all over Southeast. I'm gonna see if I can, there we go. Talking a little bit of overview of this process, we are very, very excited to jump into this comp plan update with you all. And so we're just to tell you a little about it today. First off, we are representing Abigail and myself, our LS3P. We are one firm of the two who will be working on this plan with you. The other is Kimley Horn. As you can see here, LS3P works in architecture, urban design, and planning, and our friends and colleagues at Kimley Horn do a little bit more on the planning, economics, and infrastructure side of the work. We are excited to bring that wealth of expertise to you all. You probably recognize our names because we've been working in and around Kiowa for many, many years, including this building that we are sitting in, which is fun to do. I don't know if I've ever been able to say that when I've been introducing us. We have a wide range of expertise that we are bringing here. This top row are kind of the main players that you will deal with. And it's nice that we've set this up in a little bit of a gradient. On the left, you'll see our friend David Burt, who have mentioned architect who designed this building, all the way on the right to our friend Jonathan Whitehurst. And really there's sort of a range going on from architect, much more on that side, who knows the flavor of this island, has built here, understands sort of the specific character that makes sense, all the way to a planner, and you'll see myself right there in the middle as the project manager, as well as Justin Kiernan, Jessica Rossi, who will be coming from the economic development side. You'll also see underneath here our whole slew of colleagues that will be supporting us, bucketed under a number of specific expertise from architecture, master planning, urban design and engagement, traffic and transit, land use, and economics. So we are excited to bring all that here to serve this body, this community. We are really excited to develop a plan that everyone can get behind. We've been speaking about this before. A master plan can be a comprehensive plan can be a whole number of things, and we're excited to figure out what is most appropriate and what is necessary for Kiowa at this time. On the left side, you'll see state requirements that we've been discussing a little bit today. There are processes that are required that we need to take into consideration and to input into our processes, from these inventories, the statements of needs and goals, and the implementation strategies, as well as the 10 plan components that are required by South Carolina that refer to population, economic development, natural resources, cultural resources, community facilities, housing, land use, transportation, priority investments, and the most recent add is to that is resiliency. On top of that, we get to work with the community to figure out what it is that will be special and unique to Kiowa. And so there's all sorts of additional optional opportunities to make a custom plan. You can figure out the language that you want, graphics, the formats, the different ways that you want to capture mission, visions, and goals, the ways that you want to capture community engagement, and any number of sort of more colorful ways that you want your plan to capture the vision of this place and to be a vision for this place going forward. We look forward to making something that's hopefully approachable and exciting. This is a plan that we've done in the past that had a little guide to it on the front that said basically how to use this plan. It was also something that it was handed to residents, and so it allowed everyone to be able to pick this up and make sure it wasn't a technical document that was just for the planning division or for municipal staff, but was in fact for the entire community. So this is very much the way that we think about comprehensive plans. In our project structure, the way that is planned, we will be working for a 6-month period. You'll see the breakdown of the 3 stages that are embedded into that 6 months. The first month here will be from now until mid-January, will be an assessment period. This is the least exciting and least public part of that, which is us doing assessment analysis of the existing conditions. It's understanding the previous plans that have brought us up to this point, understanding what's embedded in those. The next phase, which then kicks off in mid-January, will be an empowerment phase, and that is where we will be deep diving into community engagement with all the Kiowa community and the important stakeholders, really getting into the priorities, the programs, the policies, initiatives, goals, all the things that are important to everyone, and starting to formulate them into a document, starting to think through these, not only these state requirements, but also the town goals on top of that. And then lastly, the implementation phase is making sure that anything that gets written, any goals are actionable, attainable, and really that there's a strong and clear implementation plan to reach those things. Here's a further deep dive into the schedule. This is those same 3 phases. You'll see a deep dive into all the other component parts that we have laid out and an early project schedule reaching those. You'll see the community engagement built in, data collection, mapping and analysis, opportunities assessments. You'll see, among other things, work sessions with town staff, existing conditions assessments, all sorts of steps that we'll be taking going forward. We will share all of these things and make them as public as possible. Transparency was a word that was used earlier that's important to these processes and making them great. One other thing of note is really, as I was mentioning before, this first phase will be a little bit more internal activities, and we do look forward to next year being the more public-facing, more outward-facing activities and efforts. This had come up a little bit earlier, but there is both in this blue outline there is the municipal boundary as it is state now, and the fun thing about a comprehensive plan is that it gets to go beyond that jurisdiction as much as possible as we think about all the areas that may impact Kiowa or may that be impacted by it, and really kind of to understand all of the stakeholders, players, forces at play in order to plan for your future and for forces or impacts that may be important. One thing that did come up that we've seen again and again is Kiowa's leaning into a little bit more of an understanding of resiliency, and resiliency being plans and projects, programs that are sustainable over the long term, that are not knocked off course by acute forces or changes, any other things of that nature. And so early on, we took some of these themes these things that were required of us from these economic development, some of these mobility, environment, culture, looked at those and said, how could we reposition those through the lens of resiliency? And so really, this is a way that we might be thinking going forward, and we are really diving very much on the front end of this. We're getting to deep dive into this. But really with every part of this, there's a way that there's a more resilient future that we believe can kind of sustain the success of this place into the longevity. And so we look forward to planning that with y'all, thinking about with y'all, asking the right questions that allow us to get there. A huge component of this is going to be community engagement. We love community engagement on the first hand, and the secondly, we believe a great comp plan is only a success when it captures the spirit, the goals, the aspirations of the community. You can see in this slide just a number of different ways that we go about listening to communities in fun, exciting, engaging, approachable, really down-to-earth ways, and we think that's the way to reach people. We've done such with, showing up to big public events. We've gone to open streets events and handed out ice cream and asked people to, give us their feedback. We've done games. We've showed up at community meetings, hosted events at people's homes, as was mentioned earlier. Whatever it takes to really meet people where they are at, which is such a tenet of community engagement. So we look forward to finding that with y'all. Some more photos of the work that we're doing. An important part of that community engagement is figuring out the audiences that you want to reach and the channels that you want to reach them. I haven't figured this out. These second and third columns that you can see here are things that are kind of our typical standard list that we start growing through when we start working with community and asking who we're going to reach out to. That first column and the top of the second one are things that are specific to Kiowa. And so this is a whole list that we will run through, and you can see a whole swath of kind of folks that we will reach out to, decide how, what communication tools they have at their disposal, what audience that there are audiences they're already connected to, what influence they might have. And so we'll find the right custom plan with y'all, and we're not sure exactly what it looks like, but it might be something like this, where we get to go through and say, yeah, let's definitely talk to residents, property owners, visitors, workers, employee. Let's use Kika and its it's social media or its mailing list, and really finding the right strategy to reach the community in the best ways possible. We were excited when we sort of missed already. Excited when John said to us that sort of the edict was no stone left unturned. So really the charge to reach out through every possible way to reach this community to make sure this comprehensive plan is representative of everyone who is here. One thing that we feel really strongly about is really two-way communication, is not only asking for feedback from the community, but allowing the other community members to respond to it. I'm going to show you a series of slides that is one approach that we've used. This uses digital channels and social media. We may, asking questions, we may decide that that's appropriate for Kiowa. It may not be, but I want to show you the tenet here is at play, is that we were using social media in this instance. This is in Jacksonville. We were working to design a park using social media to call people to this web page. This web page here was sort of the host of all the information. We had a series of questions on here prompting people here asking about how to use open space. We took all of those feedback then and then shared it back on social media. And so we shared the question. This is the question we were asking folks. Here is a different question. What Jacksonville festivals and traditions should take place in this park? And we were showing people answers that people said, events surrounding the boat parade, a place to watch and celebrate with others. And when a community member saw what other people are answering, then they come into the comments and respond even more. Oh my gosh, I never even thought about this. Have you thought about this? Oh, the X group doesn't have a place to host wherever. And so really you get the circular feedback from as many means as possible. Then with this plan, we took it and we said, here's the feedback that we've heard. We summed it up into 11 points that were recurring themes. And then those 11 recurring themes turned into the 11 directives that shaped the final plan. So there's a direct one-to-one between everything that we heard and the final plan that we were shaping. And then at the very end, we took those 8 directives and then we repeated back them again and said, here's the directive, and then here are the quotes that led us there. So at every point of the process, it was a completely transparent process where you could trace everything that was built into the plan from the community members that said them, and then even allowed responses back at the end. So it's this type of transparent, open, two-way communication that we really believe in, and we've had a lot of success in doing here, again, through digital means, but it's just as effective in a physical settings if we're showing public events, if we're showing up at whatever might make sense just in public settings, going to the park, going to the resort. We plan to involve as many folks as y'all direct us and as the community tells us. It is an iterative process where at every step we're saying, who else should we talk to? So that's almost like a calling tree, and then those people, then we reach out to those folks, and then we ask them who we're going to reach out to. So this is the spirit we hope to bring here in this community engagement. Just showing some more photos of ways that we repeated this, these values back through this approach. And then lastly, I want to point this out that, as we said here, having this website be the sort of information HQ for sites is so important that everyone knows where they go. This is also ultimately on this project populated a frequently asked questions list that I think in the end was in about 30 or 40 questions, so that anything that was coming up again and again was constantly being answered and the community knew directly where to go. So this is sort of part of the ways that we think about this. Here I said, this quote, "No stone left unturned." We've also started in our mind thinking about what does this campaign look like to involve the community, and we've also found a lot of success in branding the campaign in a really approachable, fun way. And so we've been thinking about this idea of Kiowa Next. What is Kiowa Next? What is the next chapter of this place? And really approaching engagement in a way that's less in these technical terms of saying comp plans, and really in a way that's exciting, that's approachable, and really just asking simply put, what is your vision for Kiowa in the future? What are we doing great? What do we need to change? Is there anything we need to change? What's sacred here? What's special? Who can we learn from? I'm really hoping to do that. And at this point, we've already gone forward and started with the creation of a website. Let's see if I can dance around. That is here posted. It is up and live today. And so you can see the beginnings of a place where people can go and learn a little bit more about what this plan is, getting their questions answered, understanding a little bit more about what we're talking about today. We're working with Chris and the communications folks to make sure it's reflective of everything in terms of the brand and the names of the island. Also here, just a survey that's super easy to follow, jump in, that anyone can use, that anyone can share. Also a place where you can find events going forward as we host public events, as we show up in other places where people can meet us, the ability to subscribe and follow along if people want to get updates as to what's going on, and ability to contact us directly if you have questions with our team. So really easy way to have a one real clear source of information for this process going forward. So really that's all of the inputs of the community engagement that will really shape this comp plan and really hope that it will integrate all the goals that we've heard stated again and again. We look forward to hearing more, as well as all the requirements that we're asked to do to really create a trajectory for Kiowa going forward.
Thank you, Blake.
Yeah.
Any comments by commissioners at this time?
Is the website live?
Yes, it is
As
live
of
today.
today?
Yes, it is.
It's called Kiowa Next.
That is correct. .com. We do, hoping to have a little bit more of a, what's the right word here? I'm going to say power packed. I'm going to say more, a strong effort of putting that out into the world in the new year. We think right now is a tricky time to sort of announce a community engagement campaign with holidays. And so it is live, we'll be taking it, but we'll work with Chris and communications to really get it out into the world and a more significant push in the new year.
You mean a public announcement of some sort?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
So it's there for those who want to share it, but really in terms of the PR side of putting it out in the world, doing that probably mid-January.
Excellent. Any comments? We did have a workshop today from 1:30 till just before this meeting started, so the commissioners have had a chance to give some comments to Blake and Abigail about the update going forward. So, thank you.
And I would just add a suggestion that the communications folks here with the town coordinate communications with Kika, which is got a really good, strong, broad communication network. You'll just get a lot more involvement.
Absolutely. Thank you. Love that.
And Blake, I would suggest that based on our discussion in the workshop, that you, for example, just take the project schedule page and become a little bit more detailed, because there were some topics that are not visibly reflected yet in the plan.
Sure.
That we talked about that could maybe help us to better understand, and then especially also help us to understand, help the commissioners to understand when really they are going to, be involved, so that we can set time aside. So a little more detailed on the schedule would really be helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll be working with John to figure out those details, and certainly y'all are our guides in that process as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank y'all.
Thanks. The next item on our agenda under old business is the comprehensive marsh plan recommendation. John Taylor.
So, our comprehensive marsh management plan has made its way to you all's desk sort of in a draft form. Today, what we will do is asking the Planning Commission for a recommendation that would go essentially on to Town Council for public hearing and first reading. And so as part of this process, I want to just first thank our consultant team, Nicole, Elko, and Keith with Biohabitats, who's present with us today. They've been a very, very helpful team in this process of getting this plan to where it is today. And as I begin, I'm going to just recap how do we get here. This is not something that has happened overnight. And as you all know, I circulate this image or a lot of my planning colleagues all the time about what's going on in Kiowa. And this particular image, after Hurricane Irma, started a lot of conversation here for residents and property owners on Kiowa of saying, what do we need to do to look forward of how we could be more resilient. But our flood mitigation and sea level rise subcommittee that was formed out of the environmental committee did a tremendous job in producing some recommendations in 2018. And from that report, which the town has taken as a foundation to really stand on for resiliency, staff sort of formed an implementation strategy plan, and one of those things was to immediately look at our comprehensive plan. And so in 2019, we updated our comprehensive plan to reflect some of those recommendations that was in that adaptive managed report. And the first thing that was decided was the adoption of a marsh management plan. We realized that we didn't have the resources in-house to do that, so we reached out and we put our RFP out. And that's how we got connected with Nicole and Keith as their team. And so for our Planning Commission members, that goal number 5, formalize a marsh management plan that explores various methods of protection for the island's marsh and manages the interface between highlands and critical area that is vital to healthy salt marsh. And then be able to coordinate specifically with all of our entities, public and private, so that we are able to preserve our marshfront properties. One of the takeaways from the flood mitigation and sea level rise report was that the marsh side of the island was our biggest risk. We have a healthy beach that accretes, and so as far as flood mitigation, when we look at the marsh side, that was our biggest risk. And so that's how we got to developing a marsh management plan that will hopefully give us strategies to implement some change and protection for our marsh. So the biggest thing from staff's perspective is us keeping momentum. Like I said, this hasn't happened overnight, and we've been at this for a while. But as we approach the adoption of this plan, we hope to go immediately into implementations phase, and that'll be shared a little bit later. But the purpose of this plan is really to explore the various methods of protection, and that's looking at the interface between the highlands and the critical area. And that's really the genesis or the foundation of this plan, and really so that we as a community are prepared for any risk that is approaching on the marsh side of the island. Back in April, we kicked off this marsh management plan, and we had a meeting here at Town Hall, and our consultant team, they joined us. Here's a picture at Mingo, us speaking with the resort about their experiences regarding the engagement there at the Mingo Point. And so this was one stop of many across the island of where our consultant team really put eyes on the community and different potential problem areas. Many of the stakeholders that joined us in that community charrette that day also provided feedback. We had great roundtable discussions, board pinups for a lot of people to really see and engage with our team about issues regarding the marsh. Survey was conducted, and so we reached out to the community to where they could actually pinpoint exactly where they lived or places they visit across the island and point out and make some comments, say, hey, I'm experiencing erosion here, or hey, this is a point of interest that I want to see us look at more in detail. And here's that charrette I mentioned. There's a few faces I see in the room in these images. And so we had a representation from a lot of different people, residents, property owners, staff from many of the entities on the island, and plus our external partners, Clemson Extension, Sea Grant, DNR, and DHEC was also part of that process. One of the interesting things about the town, you know that we've launched a podcast this year, and so promoting this marsh management plan, we were able to get feedback and engage with the community again at another opportunity here through the podcast. And so thanks to our communications team for helping us navigate that and sharing again with the community. One thing about this particular plan, we've really tried to engage as much people or opportunities and venues to make sure that people are aware of the marsh management plan. And so one of the things I think that is important for us to realize in that survey that was sent out or conducted, there was overwhelmingly support, or at least response, that addressed this one question: is how concerned are you about threats to Keweenaw marshes? And you can look at that survey and see overwhelmingly extremely concerned. And if they're not extremely concerned, they're close to being extremely concerned. And so that shared a lot with us, that people are very concerned about the marsh. And I think most of that is because of property loss and erosion. So those who do live on the marsh side of the island, we've had conversations and talked to residents and property owners that, hey, they could notice over a time period by just looking into in their backyards and say, hey, 10 years ago, this is where the water was. 10 years ago, this is where the marsh was. And so having those conversations allowed us to see the really concerns. And sometimes it was just that folks noticed that people were crossing against areas that weren't necessarily for public access. And so these are just some of the examples of the concerns that the community shared with us. And so our consultant team took this, and then what I would say just ran with it and produced some recommendations from these list of concerns. And that is sort of at the point of where I want to transition and bring our consultant team up here to kind of walk you through more specifics of the actual plan. But this is that process of leading up to how we got to what's before you today. You've seen the executive summary, and this sheet right here is from the executive summary of those things that have been identified. And so sea level rise, habitat quality, unregulated public access, bank erosion, those are things that stood out to the community as very heightened concerns regarding the marsh. And so what we did was identify goals that responded to each of those. And these 4 buckets, being able to monitor, protect, engage, and restore, are sort of the themes that allow us to do that. I think this would be appropriate time, Nicole, for you to come on up and join me. And Nicole has done a wonderful job, and this is I don't know how many times, but as Ms. Kay would know, this plan was shared with Our World recently to the community. And we also made a presentation at the South Carolina American Planning Association conference down in Hilton Head. So this plan, before it's even been adopted, has been getting some traction here. But I'll toss it to Nicole.
Thanks, John. So that was a great introduction to what I'll do now, which is walk you through each of the goals of the plan a little bit. But first, my name is Nicole Elko. I'm the president of Elko Coastal Consulting. I'm based on Folly Beach, and joined here by Keith Bowers from Biohabitats. And this has just been, it's been a really fun project, so thank you very much for engaging us on this team. We've learned that your community is really proud of the work that's already been done, and we really want to promote the strides that you have made and help you to keep that momentum going. So what I will do is cover again the goals of the plan, which John mentioned are engage, monitor, protect, and restore. And then we'll talk a little bit about the ADAPT process, which is a key element of the plan as well. And then I'll just touch on next steps. So what you'll see on each of these slides that I give you are references to the other entities, and because this plan cannot be implemented by the town alone, so all of those engagements and again the work that's already been done really needs to be leveraged to make this plan, the recommendations of the plan, a reality. Reiterating the slide that John showed, so he really gave you a nice overview of how much time we spent gathering concerns. We really wanted to make sure that the goals of the plan address the concerns of the community. And this is a piece of the plan that can be printed out as kind of a pull-out executive summary that talks about these concerns, for example, sea level rise, habitat quality, unregulated public access, bank erosion, and then the specific goals that address those concerns. So as I step through a couple of examples from the plan for each goal, I'll try to remind you which concerns